All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for giving me a moment of your time. Thought I'd hop on here in between my incredibly busy football schedule on my way to work. Probably about the only time I can hop on and gather my thoughts. So yesterday, late after getting home, around 9 o'clock, I caught Robert's video, his announcement about the league choosing to part ways with ENGIN. So I got mixed emotions about this. Just to be clear and retrace my involvement, I was, at East versus West in Chicago, in the green room, and I believe I was the first athlete to speak up after the announcement and really, again, ask for, unity and keeping everybody together, and trying the best that we can to try and keep everyone involved. I kind of maintained that posture throughout, the past almost 2 months since this kind of dragged on. Obviously, we saw the situation get really ugly. A lot of stuff, and a lot of questions, and a lot of unknowns about information that was being released. We had the petition, we had, some smear campaigns and some different things going on for different people in the sport. Obviously, Devin was pulled into the middle of it, and was one of the focal points of it. And we had a lot of videos coming out tracking the process, little details here and there released from either side that seemed to muddy the water even worse. So I've been tracking as much as I can during football season. Obviously, with my energies focused a little bit more on football and the kids. So even myself, I kind of feel like at times I got slightly out of the loop. But I've had multiple conversations throughout this time with Robert and with ENGIN, really kind of looking for compromise. And the idea of keeping the entire league together. The petition came out, and I guess there was 27 athletes cited. We've all been through the petition. We've read it. We know where we're at with that. The one thing we don't know is all the 27 athletes and the status of those athletes. So that I am as much in the dark on that as everyone else. I mean, I know a few names and things like that, but I don't know the current status now since this announcement. Just to provide some clarity, on my position in the whole thing. Again, I've spoken to Robert, and what our last conversation, I kind of implored him to make a decision one way or another. And I also said that, my mind state, I see arm wrestling and arm wrestlers, I see us as a small growing family. I see the league, East versus West, as a family of athletes as well. So it's an interesting situation for me because ENGIN has personally never done wrong by me. And I see the sides, both sides of the story, really, between ENGIN and Devin. But me personally, I have never been done wrong by ENGIN in any way, shape, or form, nor have I been done wrong by Devin, which is what leads me to stay in that posture where I'm encouraging compromise. Now, I get the personality types, and I do think ENGIN and Devin share a remotely similar personality type. And I think, everything that's kind of transpired has put Robert in a really, really tough place. Robert's coming into the league with goals of bringing the business acumen to the league and making it more of a business. What I will say is Robert has also never done anything wrong by me, nor has he shown me throughout this entire process anything other than pure intentions. So I do believe the intentions are good. And when I look at the situation between mainly ENGIN and Devin, I can see that both people are passionate about the sport, and I believe that both people believe that the direction that they'd like to see the sport go is the best one for them, which makes it tricky when you have two opposing sides that both believe they're doing the right thing for the right reason, and they have strong personality types. Conflicts like this will happen. Again, in the vein of seeing arm wrestling as a small family and a growing family, I'll always be aligned with the idea that we need to work things out, we need to compromise, we need to stay together in order to grow. I can understand that, if maybe that's not the perspective of everybody. I'm not saying my perspective is correct. It's just kind of what I think is usually best in life. Obviously, there's times where ways have to be parted, and even families have to, break up or distance themselves. That said, I do believe that, and I will continue to believe and hope and pray that arm wrestling in the league will prosper and continue to grow. And I do think there's still a good possibility for that. So in that thought process, I think this upcoming event is incredibly important. I think we need to support it. I think we really need to embrace people like Brian Shaw and Eddie Hall, who are coming from a sport that is more mature than ours, and allowing and fostering an opportunity for us to be a part of what they're doing that's already a little bit more established. So regardless of where we stand on the Devon and ENGIN, it mainly is what it's come down to, drama and conflict, I think it's important that we keep arm wrestling first. And I see a lot of judgment, and I've seen a lot of judgment on both sides of Devon and a lot of judgment of ENGIN for quite some time now, about 7 months, about 7 weeks that this has been going on. I do think the amount of time that has gone by has allowed a lot of those narratives to grow and be perpetuated. Would have loved to see an agreement come to, or a decision point like this have been made earlier, but that's water under the bridge. But with the differing perspectives and the mud that has been kind of thrown at both of those guys, I think it's important that we allow a little grace to both of them in this process, because I do believe that they had the best intentions from their perspective. And ENGIN's walking away from the sport, which I think, not from the sport, but from East versus West, and maybe taking some time off from the sport. And I feel for him, because I know and have witnessed firsthand the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that he put into the league, and developing it really without the business background, and really just kind of willing it into existence event to event. And I've seen that firsthand for the past 3 years, and I admire ENGIN for what he's done for the sport. On the other hand, I've also seen Devon, give up a lot of his personal time. I've seen his family under a lot of stress through the advancement of arm wrestling and the role that he takes in it. And I've said many times on podcasts that I wouldn't trade places with Devon for the world, because I don't know if I could handle that mentally. I could handle that. My psyche would be rocked at all times. And the same goes for ENGIN. So I have an immense amount of respect for both of these guys. Again, none of them has ever done me wrong. I feel for ENGIN right now, because he's such a pivotal person in our sport, and he's really advanced it so much. And again, I've developed a very deep friendship with ENGIN. And like most athletes, I do trust ENGIN at his word for the most part. And I believe wholeheartedly, after conversations, that ENGIN is even at peace with this decision. And even after talking to him, because midway through and even early on in the conflict, I had many conversations with him, and with his conversations, especially with a lot of the Eastern athletes, he was feeling compelled and pressured to stay involved to represent them, mainly because of his personal relationships with them and the trust that he had built through actions over time. I think a lot of the Eastern Europeans were fearing what the league would turn into and if their best interests would be represented now that the company was in Western hands. And if we really step back from that, I think there's some validity to that. And the concerns, they make sense, they're logical at times, part of them, you know, and especially from maybe a non-English speaking Eastern culture's perspective. So I think, you know, ENGIN was a lot of his pull to stay involved with the league was coming from a feeling of responsibility for the athletes that he had and promoted. And because of that, I feel for him kind of in this situation. No one knows for sure, only ENGIN knows how much of a detriment, you know, that's put on his health and different things like that. And obviously, even from the flip perspective, I can see visibly in interviews how much stress and how much anxiety Devin has been under throughout this process. So ultimately, when we step back, these are two of the most pivotal figures in arm wrestling for very different reasons. ENGIN now, obviously as an arm wrestler, but now as a promoter, what he had been able to achieve. You know, I think back on these past 3 years, and this has been the most exciting time in arm wrestling for me. And I can only imagine what it's been for other arm wrestlers and even fans, because this is the best league that has been put out, which is why this whole drama and conflict has pained me so much, because I know that, you know, this is the best we have right now. And this is also why, again, I can't do anything other than hope and pray that everything continues to get better. I'm sure a lot of information is going to come out as we move forward in the next few days, weeks, months, as far as which athletes choose to stay. I hope and pray that we have 100% retention, and we can see where things go. I know, you know, there's been some controversy and talk about Gennady having a promotion starting up. Wish him the best, you know, and the card looks like it's shaping up to be pretty decent. I don't think that league can really compete for the exact same space as East versus West. But if there's athletes out there that don't feel comfortable, I do think, you know, there's a place for other leagues for sure, for other athletes to have opportunities. Not to mention, moving forward, it's hard to have, you know, 60, 70, 80, 100 competitive athletes in your league and get those matches out there. So I'm sure we're going to see other promotions pop up, but really what I hope and pray is that everybody stays together. You know, I've had that unity cry from the beginning, and I'll continue to march that path. So, you know, recapping things that, you know, potentially could have been done better. Honestly, like, I know what I wanted. I wanted everybody to stay together. That doesn't mean what I want is necessarily always the right thing. I would have liked to seen this decision come a little bit earlier so the fans and everybody else could process it earlier, leading up to East versus West coming, you know, this Friday in a couple of days. But the one positive, I'm glad that there's a direction kind of set out now. I think that that's really, really important, that it's the hard decisions, one way or another, are made. Hopefully this stuff blows over. We retain a lot of athletes. I think the next most important step, I'll echo it again, is that we need to hop on and buy the pay-per-view, enjoy the pay-per-view, be supportive, and be as positive as possible as we kind of navigate these murky waters. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the card. I know it's taken some criticism because of the pre-existing matches, but honestly, I've dug enough into this now where I am looking forward to the card, and I'm really looking forward to, you know, the next event that's released. Looks like it's going to be Switzerland, and I have a feeling that probably is going to be like a blockbuster card. So just a message to everybody, fans. I hope and ask that everybody stays positive. Message to the arm wrestlers still remains the same. Let's stay together. Let's stay united. Let's keep the best all under one roof. And let's make arm wrestling, let's push arm wrestling to that next step in its evolution. Again, thanks guys for listening to my mindless rambling and babble on an early morning here coming before East versus West. I appreciate all the support from you guys that I've got over the years. Message to Devin and ENGIN. I appreciate both of y'all for the sacrifices that you've made to the sport, and the selflessness that you guys have shown. Shout out to Robert Baxter for jumping into these murky waters and navigating to the best of his ability. I have all three of you guys in my prayers. Miss you all. Hope to see you soon. Everybody who tuned in, thanks for your time. Stay blessed.